I am thankful that I get to be here to share God's word with you. What a privilege, what an honor. And I want to open up with Psalms chapter 107, verses 1 through 3, and here's what it says. It says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever." Verse 2 says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story." Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Do you realize that's what thanksgiving is? It's telling your story. It's acknowledging what God has done, what God is doing, and what God is going to do in your life. That's part of giving thanks, is actually verbalizing it and getting it out there. And it goes on in Psalms 107. There's 5 different verses where it says, "Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind." And then it wraps up in verse 42 and 43 with this. It says, "The upright see and rejoice, but all the wicked shut their mouths. Let the one who is wide heed these things and ponder the loving deeds of the Lord." Isn't that a powerful passage of Scripture? Thankfulness should just be flowing out of our mouth as we ponder God's goodness, as we think about all that he is and all that he's done, not just for us, for those around us. As we think about it, it says a wise person actually ponders it. It's amazing in our culture how we've taught people to think about and to dwell on every negative thing you can think of. We dream up the worst case scenario 99% of the time, instead of just sitting there and saying, "All right, God, help me to see the way that you see. Help me to truly be aware of what it is that you've done." And so I'm going to talk real briefly this morning about simply giving thanks. Giving thanks. Now, when you go back to that verse in Psalms, and we're not going to go back to it, but the Hebrew word for thanks, there's actually not a Hebrew word that means thanks. You know, like how we teach our kids, you better say thank you. You know, well, there's something kind of missing in there. That Hebrew word actually means to make a public acknowledgement. If you really break it down, it means to make a public acknowledgement. So if we're really going to give thanks to God, we are going to be publicly declaring to him and to everyone around how good he is, how amazing he is, what he's done, what he's doing, and what he can do. That's part of thanksgiving. That's part of giving thanks. But unfortunately, we don't function in that realm very well. We really don't. Now, it was beautiful what you guys all shared this morning, and I loved hearing all the different angles and the different approach. But you know, it's not just being thankful about salvation. If you're really going to give thanks, you're going to share that salvation with others. You're going to publicly acknowledge God's goodness. You guys know full well, if you find a good deal, you let everybody know. Or maybe that's just me, but you know, I do anyway, right? If you think something's valuable, if you think something's good, then you put it out there. And that's what we're supposed to do when it comes to God. If we're really thankful for salvation, then we won't be afraid to share that with the world. Listen to my message last week. It'll encourage you on being a discipler. But the flip side of it is, if we're really thankful for all that God's given us, then to me, part of giving thanks is sharing that goodness with others, but more importantly, always acknowledging where everything's come from. Do you guys realize that everything we have, from our breath, from our talent, from our ability to think, there's nothing we have. The Bible says that, what do you have that you haven't received from God? Everything we have comes from him. But yet sometimes we walk around and we acknowledge ourselves. Look at what I've done. Look at what I've accomplished. Look at my position. Look at what I built, you know? Now, there's nothing wrong in one sense if you're acknowledging the source of everything. So truly giving thanks is acknowledging the one who has given everything to us. It's the way that we are supposed to live. Psalms 9 verse 1 says, I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all of my heart. I will tell of all your wonderful deeds. That's what giving thanks is. I want to tell you a good story. You run into someone, you're not just quickly jumping up, oh, let me tell you what just happened today. Let me just tell you about the one who's changed my life. Let me tell you about the one who's given me hope. Oh, you're struggling with peace right now? You're struggling with sickness right now? You're struggling with fear right now? Let me tell you about the one who can take care of all of those things. And let me show you where the answers are. That is giving thanks. That's what that truly is. It's acknowledging the one who is our source of everything. In Mark chapter 1, verses 40 through 45, here's what it says. It says, a man with leprosy came to Jesus and begged him on his knees. And he says, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus was indignant. He reached out his hand and he touched the man. He said, I am willing. Why do you think Jesus was indignant? Because he's not going to withhold something good from somebody who's asking. Right? He says, I'm willing, so be clean. Immediately, the leprosy left him, and he was cleansed. Jesus sent him away at once with a strong warning, saying this. He said, see that you don't tell this to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them. And instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news. Okay, I'm just going to stop there for a second. Do you realize he was just disobedient to the man who healed him? But there's something about, I don't fault the man. He was a leper and God did something for him. I was lost and God saved me. You were lost and God saved you. When it is so real and so true and so alive on the inside of you, you can't help but begin to get it out there, to give thanks. And so I honestly believe that if you struggle with verbally affirming what God has done in your life and for your life, then there's something missing right at the heart of it. There's something missing. Because if you've truly been set free, if you truly understand salvation, if you truly understand forgiveness, if you truly understand hope and purpose and life, and I can go on, if you truly understand all of that stuff, it's going to come out of you. Let the redeemed of the Lord just let it out. I just modified that a little bit because it sounded better to me. Here's another story, Luke chapter 17. Verses 14 through 19. Again, we have some lepers, and it says, when Jesus saw them, he said, go show yourself to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Now, one of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. And he threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. And Jesus asked, weren't there like 10 of you who were cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? Then he said to him, rise and go, your faith has made you well. Or the King James says, your faith has made you whole. And so, as I was thinking about the story, it just makes so much sense because that's really an example of how 90% of people are. We come to God with our needs, with what we want. We ask for what we think we need, what our focus is, and the second we get it, we're gone. We're off and on our way. And we don't truly give thanks. I was trying to think of what this could really look like, and so I made a little present, and I labeled it thanks in case you can't read that. All right? But here's how this works. Joel, will you just stand right here for a second for me? So, most of the time when we like getting gifts, right? So when we get a gift, we rarely think of giving a gift back. unless it's Christmas and you pull their name and you have to, right? But for the most part, we don't. We're just like, oh, thank you, yay. And we give some words, but really to give thanks is to physically give something. Like you're giving it. You're acknowledging the one who gave something to you, and your return is to give thanks. You're actually giving it. Now that's very different than, say thank you. Right? That's what we teach our kids. And when you only think of thank you, you're only thinking of the gift and you're not thinking of the giver. But if you're really thinking of the giver, when I'm given a gift, I'll be like, oh, thank you so much. Joel, I can't believe you were thinking of me. I can't take this. You're such, you know what I mean? It's like you're actually giving something. You're putting effort, energy. You're putting something into it. When's the last time you actually put effort, energy, heart, time, anything into truly giving thanks? You see, that leper came back to Jesus because Jesus had given him a gift, and he was so thankful. He was on the ground. Thank you for that healing. Thank you for that healing. Thank you so much. Thank you for noticing me. Thank you for thinking of me. And he says, all right, your faith has made you whole. Thank you, Joel. So here's what happened. All those other lepers, they went away with a healing, and that's all they got. But that leper who came back and actually gave thanks, he was made whole. So something tell me there was more going on in his life than just leprosy. And a lot of times, when things happen in our life, there's compounding effects, and there was way more going on in his life than leprosy. But he was willing to acknowledge the giver. I want to share a really quick story. Growing up, I have this aunt. Her name is, I called her Auntie Celine. And it's my dad's sister, and she's a nun. Just the sweetest lady ever. And actually, I told my wife about her and multiple times mentioned that she was a nun, and every time, my wife thought I said nut. Nut. So when she actually met my Auntie Celine for the first time, she goes, she's not that funny. I'm like, what? She's a nun. Anyway, so super sweet lady, right? And so here's what she did. She totally loved the Lord and had given her heart to the Lord. And even though she was Catholic, she believed in salvation and all of that stuff. And so she gave her heart to the Lord and gave her life to serving God. And she took it upon herself, because she comes from a very large family, to make sure that everybody felt acknowledged. And so every kid, every one of her siblings, all of her siblings' kids, all of her siblings' kids, all of her siblings' kids, all the way down, she would write a card for their birthdays, for their anniversaries, give them Christmas gifts. And I remember as a kid, I get this card from my auntie, and it would have like stickers in it. I want stickers. I'm a boy. Doesn't she know I'm a boy? Stickers. Okay, actually, I collected stickers when I was in, but that's a whole other story. And so for years, I would get these cards. And then even after I was married, it's just my auntie, she just does that. She just gives cards. And she does this. And I was missing the gift that was coming from the giver. I was only actually looking at the gift. The true gift wasn't the gift. The true gift was that the giver was thinking of me and wanted to give me a gift. I was on her heart. My wife was on her heart. My kids were on her heart. And she was doing this for over 100 people. And finally, she's fairly old right now. And finally, one of the relatives said, you can be done. We release you of this. Decades of doing this. It's getting to be too much. But here it was. I'm getting his gift on a regular basis. The gift is somebody acknowledging me and thinking of me and praying for me. And all I'm doing is going, stickers? I don't want stickers. Or at Christmas, fuzzy socks? I don't want fuzzy socks. Who gets fuzzy socks? Or then I went to like gloves. I don't need a pair of black dress gloves. I don't even have a dress coat. I honestly had such a wrong mindset because I was only looking at the gift and not looking at the love of the one who was giving the gift. I think somebody in here needs to hear that, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's consumed with that. So I'm going to give you really quick 5 things that thankfulness will help in your life. And the first one is this. Thankfulness helps you to let go. Mark chapter 12, verses 41 and 44 says this. It says, then Jesus sat down opposite the offering box, and he was watching the crowd putting coins into it. How would you like that? There's Jesus just checking out what you're putting in the offering, huh? Just thoughts I have. Many rich people were throwing in large amounts, and a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins worth less than a penny. He called his disciples and he said to them, all right, I tell you the truth. This poor widow has put more into the offering box than all of the others, for they all gave out of their wealth, but she out of her poverty put in what she had to live on, everything that she had. So again, when you give thanks, you're actually letting go of stuff. She had nothing, and she's saying, God, you mean everything. I'm giving you all that I have. It's amazing how much we hang on to our stuff. Our house, our cars, our toys, we hang on to it like it's mine. And we're not thankful, and we want more. And now it's broken. I don't have enough money to fix all my toys, and I don't have enough money to go on all my trips, and we're not thankful. What happens is when you start being thankful, you start taking your hands off of everything that you have, and you realize, wait a minute, it's not mine anyway. I'm just a steward. And then you start getting, wait a minute, it's more of a blessing to give than it is to receive. And then soon you can just be like that widow who said, I'm just giving it all. I'm just giving it all. I've heard incredible stories of Christians over the years who have given everything they had to God, trying to outgive him. And God just keeps giving them back. And why does he keep giving them back? Because he knows they're not hanging on to it. He knows that they understand it's more of a blessing to give than it is to receive. So they're hands off. You want to know what else you can be hands off of? If you're truly thankful, people. It's amazing when you start being thankful for people, not for what they do for you. The same way we kind of get crabby with gifts if it's not what we want. We get crabby with people if they don't do what we want. If they don't treat us the way we want to be treated, if they don't call us when they're supposed to call us, if they don't invite us to whatever, if they don't, blah, 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 blah. We go on, and we're hands-on. Or we protect our relationships. Like, what are you doing hanging out with my friend? That's my friend. We go to lunch on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock. You can't come to lunch. What are you doing here? It's like you walk into a restaurant with a friend and there's church people there and you're like, well, there goes our time. Now there's a bunch of people, right? And we're so hands-on with relationships instead of just being thankful. Just being thankful. If you just start being thankful for who people are and you're hands off, it's amazing who God will bring into your life, and it's amazing how much better those relationships are going to be. Matthew 10, 7 and 8, this is when Jesus is sending out the 12. He says, as you go, proclaim this message, the kingdom of heaven has come, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons, freely you have received, freely give. We've got to get to this place. If we're truly going to live a life of thanksgiving, we've just got to be hands off. Hands off. All right, God. Everything I have is yours. Let's just go. I'm not going to try and manipulate relationships. I'm not going to try and manipulate you, God. I'm not going to give to get this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give because you're asking me to give. I'm going to do because you're asking me to do. I'm going to love because you're asking me to love. That's just hands off. It's all God's. God, I'm going to do what you've called me to do. Here's the second thing that thankfulness does. It brings contentment. In other words, it just makes your heart at peace. Philippians 4 through 7 says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and then the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So if you want to have peace, give thanks while you're praying. If you want to have peace, give thanks while you're waiting for the answer. If you want to have peace, give thanks when the answer comes. Give thanks in all circumstances. Then you're not moved by anything. You're just at peace. And what a beautiful thing to be. When you're actually content, when you know you're with the one that you're supposed to be, when you know you're doing the job that you're called to do, when you know that you're being a good steward of your money, when you know that you're connected and in the right place, it just gives you peace. And then you're not moved by everything else. But you've got to make sure that you are giving thanks. Here's the next thing that thankfulness does. This is a good one. Thankfulness makes for great relationships. Because you know what thankfulness really is? It's actually the exact opposite of being critical. You see, when you're critical, nobody wants to be around you because you can never please them anyway. You can never do enough. You can never, you can never be enough. It's just miserable. It makes relationships hard. It's like, we're going over there. Well, I hope I say the right thing. I hope to do the right thing. I hope, everything just kind of lines up, as opposed to just being thankful. Because when you're thankful for people, not just for what they do. Colossians 2, 6 and 7 says, "So then, just as you receive Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live in him, rooted and built up in him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness." Now, I remember when one of my girls was, she was about 4 years old. I won't throw her under the bus by saying her name. And so I was going to tuck her in, and she makes this statement. She goes, "Daddy, there's only two things you do for me. You pour me breakfast, you pour me cereal in the morning, and you read me books at night. That's it. That's it." That's her little perspective. It's all you do for me. Now, obviously, there's so much more I do for her. And I don't really think that's what she was trying to say. But I think I know a lot of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds who talk that way. And we wonder why our relationships are hard. It's because we're kind of keeping track of the only things that we think you do. And we forget that actually true love is all about the focus of giving, not the focus of getting. And when you're around people who just want to give and just want to bless, who actually aren't keeping a record of wrongs or a record of rights, so you can be in their good book, it just makes relationships so much better. People actually want to be around you. People actually want to hang out with you because there's no pressure. Everybody likes a thankful person. Thank you so much for cooking for me. It was wonderful. It was so good. Husbands, you should try this with your wives. Wives, you should try this with your husbands. Just because you were amening that one so loud, Because we're so used to looking at people for what they do. You're thankful that your wife cooks, that she cleans, that she, does the laundry, that she makes the bed, that she picks up your stuff. If that's all you're thankful for, you didn't need a wife. You could have hired a cleaner, a tailor, a chef. You should be thankful for the person who they are and the relationship and the connect and the time and the friendship and the investment. That's when you truly value the person, not just what they do. When you give thanks that way, you're going to have awesome relationships. Just saying. Here's the next thing that being thankful does. Being thankful fixes your mouth. It fixes your mouth. 1 Thessalonians 5, 16 through 18, it says, "Be joyful always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances." So if you're constantly giving thanks, if you're constantly verbally, now I don't mean like a fake, like trying to brown nose and, I mean like when you're genuinely appreciating people and what they do and who they are and things that are going on, when you're continually letting thankfulness come out of your mouth, suddenly there's no room for all your complaining, your whining, your discouragement, your frustration, your gossip, your criticism. That all goes by the wayside. It actually fixes all of that. but only if you begin to engage your words with your heart and begin to truly give thanks. Matthew 15:11 says, what goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but it's what comes out of their mouth. That's what defiles them. So we've got to make sure that the words we're speaking are life. We've got to give thanks. And then finally, thankfulness makes you whole. Psalms 95, 1-2 says this. It says, come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. And that's a verse that just tells me I'm supposed to sing even though I'm tone deaf or whatever I am, right? It's just one of those verses. It has to come out. Here's why thanksgiving makes you whole. If we go back to the story of the leper, he got one thing fixed. But because he went to Jesus with a grateful and a thankful heart, he left whole. He left complete. You know, the age of 18, when I was in a major accident, left on the side of a mountain, just about dying, God saved me. And it took me almost 4 years, just shy of 4 years, to truly be thankful. Because those 3 to 4 years I struggled with, well, now I can't do this, and now I can't do that, and why this, and why that, and why this. And then finally, I had an encounter with the Spirit of God, and I actually got saved. I fully gave my life to Jesus, and in that moment, I was made whole. And suddenly I could give thanks for everything. I'm thankful for surgeons. I've had 4 hip surgeries. I'm so thankful I get to walk. There's times my flesh wants to be discouraged when I have to be, the lodge dad when my whole family's snowboarding, when that was one of my favorite things to do. But that just pales in comparison to the life that I have and the things that I get to do. I am so thankful because I was made whole. I don't need this, or this. I just need Jesus. And he's everything that I need. And in him, when I truly give thanks, when I give thanks to the Lord, I'm saying, God, thank you for saving me, for forgiving me. Now I'm giving you my life. And the second you give that gift, man, you'll start walking in a wholeness, in a completeness that you've never experienced before. Suddenly, people's words, people's actions, money, lack of money, job, promotion, fire, circumstances, none of that will rock you because you're whole. You have everything you need. One of my greatest memories is my wife and I with nothing getting married. We had God, a love for God, and a call on our life. Not a penny to our name, just a beat-up old 87 Chevy Cavalier. I was so whole. I was so forgiven. I was so free from everything the world had to offer, from every image, every addiction. I was free from it all. And it felt so good to walk out into the life that God had for me. You can be made whole. But it starts with acknowledging God. It starts with being thankful for who he is and all he's done. And if you truly are thankful, it'll come out of you. It'll come out of you with your words. It'll come out of you with your actions. It'll come out of you with your attitude. It'll come out of you by the way you live. Hands off, understanding everything is the Lord's.